10. Space debris. With more and more space missions taking place, such as satellite launches and sending astronauts to the International Space Station, more and more debris is ending up in orbit around the Earth. And sometimes it finds its way back down to our planet. Among the collection of rusting metal hunks in the middle of Aerospace Corp's courtyard are items such as a 150-pound motor casing from a Delta II rocket that landed in the deserts of Riyadh in 2001, and a massive 600-pound fuel tank from the same type of rocket that fell in a farmer's field in Texas in 1997. Aerospace Corp collects this space debris in order to study it and find out the best way to deal with our solar system littering. This is important work. Not only can the metal garbage cause severe damage when it crashes down, but it can also crash into satellites. Very often, smaller items burn up in the atmosphere, but the larger items provide extremely useful information. For example, it can help us to design future spacecraft to minimize debris. Although these items might seem cool, if one ends up in your backyard, you'd be wise not to keep it as a souvenir. Anything that falls from space like this is the property of the Air Force. 9. Fish. In Mexico in 2017, the town of Tampico experienced far from your typical rain shower. People were going about their Tuesday morning when it began to pour. Out of nowhere, there was the sound of something slapping into the ground from the sky. Those who investigated and those that were nearby could not believe their eyes, with one onlooker even managing to record the strange event on video. What had crashed to the ground were countless silver-scaled fish. Although they weren't all that large, it was something that no one in the town had seen before. You might have heard the saying, "It's raining cats and dogs," but it turns out that other animals are more likely to fall from the sky. But why did it end up raining fish? Surprisingly, this sort of thing has happened before. Scientists believe that the cause lies in heavy winds being able to pick up small fish, whipping them up into the clouds to be rained down elsewhere. Some places even see it as a blessing. In a town in Honduras, far from the coast, raining fish is rather common. In fact, it's even celebrated as an annual festival by the people. When it comes to the town of Tampico, though, the matter has been met with some concern by the Director of Civil Protection for the area, Pedro Granados. It's not that the fish were in any way harmful, but it could be a warning sign of what's to come as a result of climate change. 8. Frogs. In 2005, residents of the town of Odzaki in the north of Serbia noticed storm clouds forming as the wind started to pick up. However, rain wasn't the only thing pouring from the sky. It was also raining frogs. Amazingly, although they'd fallen from quite a height, a lot of the frogs survived and hopped about the town, looking for ponds and other water sources to get themselves comfy in. The frogs had traveled quite a long distance, as they were different from the local species that lived in the area. Many could not believe it. After all, raining frogs sounds more like something from the Bible than something that would happen in real life. However, the occurrence isn't actually all that strange. Climatologist Slavica Ignatovic was able to give an explanation for the event, stating that a wind resembling a tornado can suck at anything light enough from the surface or shallow water. Usually, it's just dust, but sometimes also larger objects. After their long journey, we hope the new arrivals in town were able to get along well with their neighbors, despite their surprise appearance. 7. Golf balls. One night in 1969 in Punta Gorda, Florida, it started to rain. But it wasn't just drops of water falling from above. It was raining golf balls. People were extremely confused and no one had any explanation for the strange phenomena. The golf ball rain wasn't exactly on a small scale either. They littered the gutters and were in such numbers that after a while the policeman got tired of collecting them and just gave up. Local policeman Lieutenant Clarence Walter and his colleagues carried out investigations at the local country clubs to see if there was any connection, but no balls had gone missing, and those that were on site were meant to be there. It didn't seem like they were a result of an enthusiastic golfer on the driving range. To this day, over 50 years later, there's still no explanation. How do you think it happened? Do you think it was some sort of prank by a local, or perhaps it truly was a freak weather event? Let us know in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe. 6. Money. There are some rain showers that you really don't want an umbrella for, especially when it's raining money. Like it did in Kuwait, Dubai in 2015. It was February 11th and people going about their business noticed paper falling from the sky. Picking it up, they realized it was money. People frantically began snatching up the cash as if they were in some sort of game show, some even running into traffic to collect it. Once the shower was over, almost $817,000 worth of currency had fallen in the area. The curious thing was that the money that fell was United Arab Emirates dirham and not in the local Kuwaiti dinar. Either way, it was worth picking up, as each note was worth 500 AED, or the equivalent of around $136. To this day, we don't know who or what was responsible for this strange event, as no one's come forward to say that the money was theirs. Was it some sort of publicity stunt, or maybe a freak accident? Whatever the case, there were plenty of Kuwait people that were happy to be out in the weather that day. 5. The Great Kentucky Meat Shower. In March of 1876, in the town of Olympia Springs, Kentucky, meat poured down from the sky. The wife of Alan Crouch was outside making soap when what she believed was chunks of beef started to fall around her like blood-red snowflakes. The next day, the matter was investigated further by Harrison Gill. Granted, by this time the raw meat had been left outside where it had fallen, so it was past the point of eating. But that didn't stop two men from turning up at the property and trying some. Although we don't know their names, they said that the mystery meat rain tasted as if it was venison or mutton. Although the way in which they felt was remarked to be like snowflakes, the pieces of meat weren't all that small. Some were as big as 1.5 square inches, but most were around half of that size. Over the years that followed, many explanations were given as to why the meat fell from the sky. One scientist, Leopold Brandeis, hypothesized that it wasn't even meat at all, and that it was a bacteria that jellified like meat when it rained. It was a clear sky though, so this theory was easily debunked. Other scientists who had samples of the mystery meat found it to be either from a human baby or a horse, and to be mainly cartilage. The man who's likely to be the closest to the truth is Dr. L.D. Kastenbein. After burning the meat and finding out it smelled like rancid mutton, Kastenbein concluded that the meat shower was most likely the joint effort of a few vultures projectile vomiting. Gross. 4. Candy. In Lake County, California in 1857, it was reported by the people that during the nights of the 2nd and 11th September, sugar began to fall from the sky. The sugar was in small clumps around 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch in length and resembled hard or boiled candy. Due to the shapes that the substance fell in, it was even remarked to look like goose feathers. Normally, you might question why sugar was falling around you, but the citizens of Lake County seemed to make the most of the situation. Historical reports of the time mention the ladies of the town collecting the strange rainfall and making syrup from it. We suppose it brings a whole new meaning to the phrase "when life gives you lemons," or in this case, when the weather gives you candy. 3. Spiders. In Santo Antonio de Platina in Brazil, a local captured a video of countless spiders all hanging down from long, thin webs, looking like they were cascading down on the people below. Ironically enough, the guy that took the video, Eric Rice, is a web designer himself. Although the video went viral, a rain of spiders like this is actually more common than you might think. Apparently, the type of spiders that were featured in the video are pretty social, and as a result will often hang out quite literally in large groups like this. However, that's not the only reason why they might have all been in this particular area at this time. Biologist Marta Fisher gave an explanation. She said it's not an unusual sight to see a sky speckled by spiders. The species Anolosimus eximius can be found from Panama to Argentina and lives in large colonies, sometimes comprising thousands of individuals. Each spider is around 1 inch in size, and its colonies can number in the thousands. they can create webs all the way from the ground to locations up to 65 feet high, and sometimes if the wind is strong enough, it can whisk away this large community web, sending it flying through the air to a new location. We don't know about you, but the thought of thousands of spiders all flying through the air together is terrifying to think about. It's likely that this is what happened in Santo Antonio de Platina, and the reason for the long strings of spiders is that they were trying to make it back up into the trees for safety after their aerial journey. 2. Coffee creamer. If you lived in the town of Chester in South Carolina in 1969, all you'd need to do was step outside of your house with your mug of coffee in the morning to get some creamer. If you were vegan, it was okay too, as the creamer was non-dairy. The reason why the town of Chester received this gift from the skies lies in the fact that they lived near a Borden Company factory that was manufacturing one of their products, Cremora. Cremora was a non-dairy creamer that came in powdered form. This powder ended up clogging the exhaust ducts in the factory, resulting in some of the product billowing out into the air. When this mixed with dew, moisture, and rain from the weather, it provided all the liquid the powder needed to turn into creamer goop to rain down on the town below. Now, that would be nice if it landed directly into your hot cup of coffee. It's not so nice when it doesn't land there, for example, all over the roads and sidewalks. Understandably, the Borden Company ended up facing legal action over the creamer showers and had to pay $4,000 in damages for causing the weird weather event. 1. A cow. In 1997, a crew of Japanese fishermen were clinging to the wreckage of their fishing boat, awaiting rescue in the Japanese Sea. They were picked up by a vessel after a few hours of floating in the waves, but they were placed under arrest almost immediately by the authorities. The reason why, one of them explained what had happened to cause their boat to sink. A cow had fallen from the sky, crashing right through the middle of the ship and causing it to capsize almost immediately. The weird thing was that every single one of the crewmates told the exact same story. The fishermen were detained for weeks until some officials from the Russian Air Force made contact. They sounded a little bit sheepish when they explained that the Japanese fishermen had been telling the truth. Apparently, the crew of a Russian cargo plane had noticed a cow wandering near their airfield out in the cold wastes of Siberia. They had decided the best course of action was to steal the cow, stowing it on board the plane in the cargo hold. For what reason, we don't actually know. Perhaps they fancied steak when they got home, or a glass of milk for the flight. The cow didn't take too kindly to being airborne and started to panic, trampling and stampeding around the cargo bay. This caused chaos for the people on board, but also for the pilot, who was having a hard time keeping the plane stable. In order to make sure the plane did not crash, the Russians needed to get rid of their bovine passenger, and so they chunked it out of the hold at an altitude of 30,000 feet over the Japanese Sea. You don't need to be a scientist to work out where the cow landed. Thankfully, the Japanese fishermen were released, but it was certainly the biggest and most dangerous catch of their lives. Thanks for watching. Which one of these strange objects from the skies caught you by surprise? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. See you next time. Bye.